In the mid-1800s, two men owned neighboring pieces of land in northern England. One was a wealthy mill owner, the other operated a coal mine. Neither man expected that a construction project would one day make legal history. It began with something seemingly harmless, a reservoir, a large body of water designed to supply a growing industrial operation. The plan appeared straightforward, the engineers approved it, the workers built it, and everything seemed perfectly safe, until the ground beneath it gave way. Without warning, thousands of gallons of water burst through hidden underground passages and surged into a nearby coal mine. Within moments, the mine was flooded. Operations stopped, property was damaged, and a dispute between two neighbors suddenly became one of the most important legal cases ever decided. The courts would be forced to answer a question that still affects businesses and property owners today. If you bring something dangerous onto your land, should you be responsible when it escapes, even if you did nothing wrong? This is the story of Rylands versus Fletcher, the case that transformed the law of liability forever. To understand the case, it is necessary to return to Victorian England. The Industrial Revolution was reshaping society. Factories expanded across the country, railways connected distant towns, coal-powered industry, and entrepreneurs competed to build larger and more profitable businesses. Among those entrepreneurs was John Rylands, a successful mill owner with ambitious plans. His textile operations required a reliable water supply. To solve the problem, he decided to construct a large reservoir on his property. The project appeared entirely reasonable. Engineers were hired, construction began. The land selected for the reservoir seemed suitable. No one anticipated danger. Yet beneath the surface of the property lay a hidden problem. Years earlier, the land had been used for mining. Old underground shafts and tunnels remained buried beneath the earth. Many had been abandoned and forgotten, some were poorly documented, others were completely unknown. The reservoir continued to take shape. As workers completed the project, everyone believed they were building something beneficial. No one realized they were also creating the conditions for disaster. Nearby, another businessman operated a coal mine. His name was Thomas Fletcher. His mining operations depended upon a network of underground tunnels extending beneath the surrounding land. For years, the mine functioned successfully. Then, the reservoir was filled. At first, everything appeared normal. The water settled into place. The structure seemed secure. There were no visible signs of trouble. But beneath the surface, immense pressure was building. The weight of the water forced its way through old mining shafts hidden underground. The earth could not contain it. Suddenly, water broke through. It rushed through abandoned passageways and flooded directly into Fletcher's mine. The damage was immediate. Mining operations were disrupted. Equipment was affected. The business suffered substantial losses. For Fletcher, the cause seemed obvious. The reservoir had caused the flood. Someone should be held responsible. But Rylands had a defense. He had not intended any harm. He had hired competent engineers. He had acted reasonably. The accident was unexpected. So who should bear the loss? The man who built the reservoir, or the man whose mine happened to lie beneath it? The answer was far from clear. Fletcher brought a claim against Rylands. At first glance, the case appeared simple. One person's project had caused damage to another person's property, yet the law was not straightforward. Traditionally, liability often depended upon fault. A person was usually responsible when negligence could be proven. But in this case, Rylands had not personally been careless. The engineers responsible for construction had failed to discover the hidden mine shafts. Rylands himself had no knowledge of them. This created a difficult legal question. Can a person be liable even when they are not negligent? The courts now faced a problem unlike many they had encountered before. Industrial society was becoming more complex. Large-scale projects created new risks. Factories, reservoirs, railways, and machinery all had the potential to cause enormous harm. If no negligence existed, should victims simply bear the losses themselves? Or should responsibility fall upon the person who introduced the risk? The dispute moved through the courts, and as it did, it became clear that the judges were deciding far more than a neighborhood disagreement. They were deciding the future direction of liability law. Eventually, the case reached the House of Lords. There, the judges focused on a principle that would become famous throughout the common law world. The reasoning was surprisingly simple. A person who brings something onto their land that is likely to cause harm if it escapes must keep it under control. If it escapes and causes damage, that person should be responsible, even if they were not negligent, even if they acted in good faith, even if they never intended the harm. The judges recognized that certain activities create unusual risks. When someone chooses to introduce those risks, they should bear the consequences if things go wrong. The reservoir was exactly such a risk. Water itself was not dangerous while contained, but once released, it became destructive. The court concluded that Rylands was responsible for the damage caused to Fletcher's mine, not because he intended harm, not because he was careless, but because he had accumulated something on his land that escaped and caused damage. A new legal principle had been born, a principle that would become known as strict liability. The decision in Rylands versus Fletcher became one of the most influential rulings in legal history. For the first time, courts clearly recognized that liability could exist even without proof of negligence. The rule established a powerful idea. If a person introduces a dangerous or unusual thing onto their property, they may be responsible when it escapes and causes harm. The principle shaped generations of legal decisions. It influenced environmental disputes, industrial accidents, chemical leaks, explosions, and countless cases involving hazardous activities. Although later courts refined and limited the rule, its influence remains enormous. Law students across the world continue to study it, judges continue to discuss it, and legal systems continue to wrestle with the balance between innovation and responsibility. John Rylands never intended to flood a coal mine. Thomas Fletcher never expected his business to be destroyed by a neighbor's reservoir. Yet their dispute created a legal principle that continues to shape modern law. What began as a construction project became a landmark legal precedent. A reminder that responsibility does not always depend on bad intentions. Sometimes it arises from the risks we choose to create, a reservoir, a flooded mine, and a legal rule that changed the world. That is the legacy of Rylands versus Fletcher. If an accident happens without anyone being careless, who should pay the price?